Okay, hello, good day everyone, and welcome to another Power BI Learning Community session. Today, we're going to be looking at getting started in DAX, so a beginner's guide to DAX, and my name is Benedict Iheagwara. So, the Power BI Learning Community is brought to you by UrBizEdge and being sponsored by Enterprise DNA. So, UrBizEdge is Enterprise DNA is the Power BI firm that is focused on empowering more users to learn more about Power BI and they can use it on their business data and impactfully change the world as well. So they have forums, they have learning centers, they have a lot of cool and resources available on that platform which you can access at a fee. Then we have UrBizEdge, which powers the community, and UrBizEdge is a Microsoft consulting, financial modeling, business intelligence, data analyst, and enterprise solution firm in Nigeria. They're also developers of the Nigeria financial markets too, which you can find in Microsoft Office. And again, even the events behind the Nigeria markets data platform as well. So today, I'm going to be talking about a beginner's guide to DAX, and I'm a data analyst and also a trainer at UrBizEdge. I'm also an open source contributor and a technical content writer. Okay, so yeah, so since I might not be able to pay attention to the chat as well as also again present or teach at the same time, so I'm going to give everybody's presenter rights. So you could, if there are any questions, you can unmute and ask a question, or if maybe there's any you can't hear me or there's any complaints at all, you could just unmute and ask a question. Right. So you should be able to do that now. Okay, so I'm going to start with DAX. So first of all, what's DAX? So just like in Excel, you use formulas and functions. In DAX, you use a language called DAX, which is data analysis expression. And the language is used in Power BI for you to write your functions, formulas, and all of that, all in Power BI. Okay, sorry, can you hear me now? Is it better? Yeah.
We can hear you.
Okay, all right. Okay. Okay, so the language we use is DAX to write your formulas in DAX. So we're going to get started by first we're going to do before you start any of your data analysis process, you need to have the data you want to use. So we're going to import data. So I already have some Excel sheets, 2 Excel sheets we're going to make use of, which is we're going to mix of the brand data and sales data. So I'm going to import this. So you can see you can import your data here or even use the get data here. And when you import your data, it takes you to Power BI shows you this Power BI Navigator, which shows you all the sheets or all the tables available. Is a database all the tables available? If it's a Excel sheet, it's going to show you all the sheets available, so like sheets 1, sheets 2, all of that, or the names of the sheet, like you did right now. And you can either load it. Loading means to load to Power BI, transform to Power Query. So I'm just going to quickly load all the 2 data we're going to make use of. Okay, so we have this, and the second one is the sales data. So since I'm in Power Query, it's not going to show me load, so it's going to show me OK. And when I click OK, it's going to take me straight back to Power Query by displaying the Power Query for me, like this. So we're going to do some quick cleaning, and then we'll get started. So I'm going to delete these last 3 rows, so I can select them, and I right-click and can remove these columns. Then I'm going to remove these headers and make this my header by use the first row as headers. And next, I'll change my data types to make sure they are all correct. So this is my time. Got as a new step. This discount, quantity, price, pizza sold, dates correct, dates and transaction dates. So everything here looks okay so far. Then I come here and I do the same thing. Everything as well also looks okay. Okay, so we're going to use this to data. So I'm going to close this and apply it. So once you close and apply your data, it takes a while, depending on how large your data file is. And then to get loaded here, you'll be able to see your data in this fields column in Power BI. So the next one I'm going to do is to just do a quick modeling of this data, and we'll get started on how to use DAX and the different concepts in DAX. Okay, so far, are there any questions? Okay, so it's done loading, and you can see our data here. If I click here, I get all my data here. So the next thing I'm going to do is, whenever you have a data, you have data which have different time elements or date element. You always need to create a date table. It's always best practice to create a date table. So we're going to start now with DAX. Okay, so in DAX, the first thing when you're creating a table, you're trying to create a measure, you're trying to create a columns. You have all these multiple names. You have calculated columns, measures, tables. So they are very different from how you work with formulas in Excel. In Excel, where you have data, so for example, we have the sales data. So the thing about Power BI formulas now, Power BI formulas works based on columns. Excel formula works on a cell level, but Power BI formulas works on a column level. And this is what I mean. So I have this data here. I don't want to, so I'm just going to make a copy of it in that new sheet that I created already. Okay, so I can close this one now. Okay, so data is also very large. So I'm just going to take a very small sample out of it and paste it here. Okay, so this is our data. Okay, so we want to create a new, whenever you're trying to, so for example, you have this formula, you have this in Excel. If you have a formula with Excel, Power BI will be almost a lot more easier to understand. So in Power BI, we have new columns. We have measures, and we also have new table. Okay. So when you're working with formulas in Excel, you're always going to do, for example, you have this, you're trying to find out, for example, now we have the price, we have the quantity. Let's say we're trying to create, I want a table here. Let's ignore the discount for this very moment. And I want to find out what's the total sales. Or let's look at the discount. I want to find out the total sales. What am I going to do? I'm going to do equals to, right? So whenever I put equals to, it starts a formula in Excel. I'm going to click on the price, and you say you reference E2, or multiply by my quantity, right? Multiply by, so I want to add the discount, so it's always more minus my discount. And here it's showing me the wrong data type. So I'm going to do that general. Okay, so now it shows me the cells. So when you're writing this formula, you're writing them on, you're calling the cells. When you're writing your formula in Power BI, what goes to Power BI and try the similar formula? You see in Power BI, you're going to be calling the names of the columns and not the individual points in your data. But when you're writing to Excel, you're calling in like E2 minus this, E5, AB. You're calling the names of the cells. So everything in Excel works on the cell level. And when you're done with this, now you just have to drag down and you get all your corresponding for each of the different roles in Power BI. So when you created this column, now. This column didn't exist initially. This column didn't exist. So initially there was no total sales column. So the moment you created this column, that's the idea of a new. That's what I said. That's what they call the new column on the calculator columns in. New column is just basically you creating a whole new columns in Power BI. And next thing, so let's look at, so we have new columns, and then you have these new tables. New table just means you're creating a whole new table. So for example, I come here and I use like a filter. So I want to filter maybe this array that I have here, and also maybe I don't include everything. I press sorry, yeah. So this array here, and I want it to include everything here when it's equals to maybe just this. Sorry. So I want this, and I want to sort it by this array when it is equals to this particular data, and I get this. So when I created this is a new, this what Power BI calls a new table. So now I want to create a table in Power BI for our dates, to have a date data in our service. So we have a calendar that's all the data, all the tables here used together. So I'm going to create a new table. So that's a new table you see here. So new table does create, you're writing a dash formula to create a new table, just like we just did similarly in Excel. So when you create a new table, it's probably always shows you this table equals to. Whatever it adds in front of this equals to is the name of your table. That's what it's going to call the table. Like for example, this table is called branch data. This is called sales data. So whatever name I put here is going to be the name of our table. And yeah, we're going to just use call it our dates table, or even dates. So you want to put dates table. And everything you put outside it is similar to in Excel where you start writing your formulas. So it does, unlike Excel, you don't really name you don't need to name your columns before you write your formulas. You just write your formulas. In Power BI, you name the column or you name the table first before you write everything. So you have your dates table now equals to. So I want to get different dates. So I'm going to put calendar. It's asking for the start date and the end date. This is similar to when you're writing a formula in Excel. It always gives you this assistant. It gives you this support where it's showing you like what does the formula require, what are the arguments formulas it's expecting. So it's expecting the start date and the end date. And it goes like it's separated by a comma. So asking for the start date. So I'm going to use the smallest date should be the start date. I can use mean in this our case, and I want to use, so I'm trying to call our dates. In our sales data, we had the column which had our dates. So if it was Excel, you would have done like A1. But in Power BI, like I mentioned, it does everything on a cell like level. So I'm going to call this name of this table first, which is our sales data, which is this is data you see here, sales data. And then these are all the columns in this sales data. Branch, there's a column, there's a branch column, there's a dates column, there's a pizza column, there's a quantity column. So I want the dates column, and I can close my brackets now. So everything I'm doing is here. So far, it's the minimum value. So I put comma. So that's for the end dates, and on the maximum date also again in this same. So you to have your don't ever have date and time in the same column. Always have them separated. So now you have this. So if you notice, we call the sales data date table. If I come to my sales data, this the table we're referencing, this particular column, which is called the date table, which is located in our sales data. Should I go back here now? I'll create a new column. So if, for example, in Excel, I was trying to do this, I would have probably come here and maybe, let's say, for example, I have all the dates here. So I have all these dates here. So I sit down to filter every here. So sort this in an ascending order. So there's nothing here. That's what sorry. Okay, so we have our dates here. So I sort everything here based on my date, short dates. So this is similar to how we just have how we created all these dates when we sorted all of them, all of everything here. That's what we've done here. if now you want to get, for example, this our dates. So you see here, I call the date instead of me calling date equals to. So I want to do something similar. I want to have a column now that have our years in Excel. You're going to use that year formula, and you'd have come here and do equals to year, and you select a cell, which is J2. You close the bracket, press enter, and you drag down, just like this. In Power BI, you, like I mentioned, you don't really call cells. So we want to create a new column here. You can't really click here to create that new column. And that's why you use this one, new column. So new tables, we've seen new tables. It allows you to create a table. Right now, I've created a table that didn't exist before, which is our date table. You can also use other DAX functions. We're going to look at that to create tables as well. So I go to a new table and I create a new column. So in this new column, I want to create a column now called have our years. And in our years, I want to have the years here. So I'm just like I'm going to use our year formula. The year formula allows me to get the years. So I press tab. It asks me for the date. So I'm going to call, instead of me clicking here, I can't click here. So I'm going to call, yes, so I can't click here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to call this particular column. So which is the dates column, the dates, and which is this one, dates table, date. And I close my bracket, enter. So you see, I call it date table because when I was writing the formula, I called it date table. So if I change it, for example, and I added the E like this, you'll see here it will change to date E table. So you see, exactly. So now you have the years here. You want to create a month, you can also get new columns and you create your month. So for example, I want to have a month. So I do equals to month of my dates again. So now you have the months of your dates as well. Sorry. Yeah, so now you have the month of your dates as well. Just like in Excel, if I do something similar, you have done equals to month, and you click on the date, and it gives you the month. So this is the first month, and if I drag down, I get the individual month of all of them. And you see, if you see the month gives you this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but we don't really read months as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So most time you still create this, however, but we'll call it like month number, but it's not the actual month, it's just the number of the month. So in Excel, if you want to get the name of the month, you can get your month again, like this again. But to get the actual month, so it will be showing January, February, instead of like here to show January, then March, you come here and you format it. Click a number format. You go to your dates and you always format it as a month. You want just the month. And you get your month. You format it. So you always have to do a format. Okay. So in Power BI, you do something similar, but you can't really format it by clicking on the button. There's a formula you can click, you can write that will format it for you. So I'm going to do a new column. And now this is the actual month, which is going to be a format of the value. What value am I trying to use? I'm trying to use this, the date value, and I want it to format it based on the month. So the code is usually MMM, which will give you the three-letter digit like JNFEB. Wherever the extra M is going to spell it out correctly, January, February, so JN. And I close the brackets, enter. So you see January, February, just like that. But if I removed out one M to only be three M's, is going to show me its short form. If I want to do something similar in Excel and I format my cell, I go to custom. I can format my data, for example, to show me dates for this for minute hour. So yeah, this I want to get the date. So it's the MMM. Just have this 3M, add the extra M becomes January. I remove one M becomes January. Then just like that. So that's the similar stuff we just did right now in Power BI. So this is how to create a dates table. You can also go further to create your quarter, your month, your year, and all of that. Okay. So now let's go to like the actual topic, which is DAX. Okay, so there are a lot of functions you can use in DAX. A lot of functions. You have your sum, your X. Does everything you do, every calculation you can do in Excel, you can do it same way in Power BI as well. Okay, so I want to create just like earlier with this times this times this, and we got this answer. We can do something very, very similar in Excel as well. So we want to create that new column that has this times this to get our digits. So what I'll just do is to come here, click on new columns. And for example, I come here and I put sales. So let me just put sales and call this text. So I'll tell you why this. So I want to have our unit price. So I'm going to call unit price, which is this. I'll multiply it by my quantity. I'll multiply it by the discount. And it gives me the answer right there, just like that. So one thing you should know is that it's always not advisable that you create a lot of columns. There are points there are some situations you have to create new columns. For example, we're creating our dates. For this our data, we can't create measures for them because we want individual records of all these individual dates. In a situation like this, we have our sales here. So this is our sales, but let me call it column. So this is our sales. We use new column. So let's say n new column to create this. You can also create this again similarly using, if we are using our sales, we can create something similar new column, but I'm going to use we're just going to use we're going to use what we call a measure. So if I come here to my reports pane and I take a card out, you see they're going to give me the exact same stuff, but the thing that one of them has occupied more space or more processing space compared to the other one. So our new column, for example, here, I come here and I pick this and I drop it here. It shows me the amount. It is the amount of new columns, total number of sales we have here. But here I can use what we call an iterative function, which is like which we call like our sum x. We have our sum x. We have our sum x. We have an averages, the max, min x, and all of that. So these are iterative functions. What do we mean by iterative functions? So what do we mean by iterative function is that it's going to sum it up, but it's going to sum it up row by row. It's very different than if we, for example, want to get the total number of sales here that we did this now. And if I use a new measure, so if I create a measure is something that does not create a new column, does not create a new table. It's very, very different from, does not really different from how you do something in Excel. So if you have this data, for example, like now in Excel, and we we format it as a table, we'll get similar to what Power BI actually does here. So I want to get our sales here. Let me delete this. What you have done is come here and you do this. So you say this is similar to what Power BI does. New tables, the tables function in Excel also behaves like similar to our DAX writes its formula in Power BI. So this time, so it calls the entire table times this times 1 minus this. This was the new columns. So a measure is like a aggregation of everything. It's not going to appear on your table, but it's only going to get add up or sum up, or it's only going to act when it's being called, but you can create a measure. So I do, for example, what a measure is similar to is, for example, instead of me having all the amounts and having the total individually here, I can create a measure that does like a sum of everything here. It's like a measure. It doesn't exist on your table, but you can use it to do calculations and formulas in Power BI. To create a measure, I come here, you see new measure and this calculated measure. What calculation measure does is it assists you in your formula. So you can come here and click on the formula, kind of like what you want to do. Power BI will try to write it for you. So you want to do a simple addition, you come here to, you want to do a multiplication or addition, and you write in the value you want to use, you put in the value you want to use. So you do that, you just come here and you select for example, I want to multiply the quantity times the unit price. Enter them and press OK. And it's going to create it. This is a new measure. So you created it based on using like probably a kind of like assistant you in creating it. I can come here and delete it from my model. Okay. But if you want to write a measure yourself, you click on this new measure. And it does like the other one, like new columns, new tables. It also asks you to write the name of the measure. So I want to have the total sales. Or like, let me just go sales. But yeah, this is also created by a measure. Okay. And I come here and I use a SumX. So you see SumX it returns the expression based on the table that I reference. So it asks me for a table, it asks me for the expression. The table I want to use is, for example, is this particular table, which are sales data. So I come here and write sales data. That's the table. The expression, what expression does means is I write the formula of what I'm trying to achieve with it. So I want to do a multiplication of this times this, and also put in accounts of my discount as well. So I put the unit price, just like we created already the new measure, and I put my quantity. And lastly, I put in my discount. So discount. I close my brackets and I close my final brackets again. And I press enter. So you have created the measure here. The measure is not anywhere on our table, but we can use it in our formulas. If I come here and I open a new card and I drop this measure here, you see it gives me the exact same thing. The only difference now is that this new column we have created has created record for all these records. For this, right now we only have like 1,000 or something, so it doesn't really look like I've done in simple. If you're working with like you're in the real life data and you're working with a lot of data, this column was very unnecessarily. What you're trying to achieve with this column, you could have done it easily with a measure. And the measure is not going to occupy as much space as this one. This is going to occupy 9,000 more space compared to just what this one has created. So most of the time, if you can use a measure to do your formulas, you also use a measure of creating your own new column for it. Okay. So you have this. So another thing you can also do again, there are also other formulas. Let's look at the related formula. So far we have not yet built our model. So let's quickly build that. Okay, so we have our sales data here, and I'm trying to link them up together. So let me say this okay here. So I put our branch here and then put my dates. So this date. Easy. Okay. Okay. So let's assume in this our branch data here. You saw we have the managers here. And for some reason, I also want to have the managers of these individual branches here. So there's a formula called related, which you can use to call in that to get that info. So I can come here and call me, for example, manager and do equals to related. So what related does is I'm trying to get information from another table, but I want to put it here. So that things like you don't really need to do this because if you need that information, for example, you have price in another column, you can always use this in your formula or even inside your measure that you create in your column that does brings it here. So I ask for the related and I want the column name. So my branch data, it shows me my branch data. It shows me the two information that is related to this one because we've connected them together now. So I want my manager and I close the brackets, enter. And so I have all the managers for the Lekki branch. So Lekki has this manager. If I come here, that's the manager's name for the Lekki branch. And if, for example, let me use the filter to filter it to maybe Balada. Yeah, you see it here. So that's it. So that's the related formula. That's how it works. Okay. So we have looked at new tables, new columns, and then we looked at the related. Okay. So there are a lot of other functions again in using DAX. We're going to look at the most popular ones which you can use. So when you're working with data, most of the time you might be creating a lot of measures, and this space can start getting a little bit too much, a little bit a lot, especially we have everybody a lot of tables and a lot of databases and all of that. So usually it's always best practice that you create a new table that just houses your measures. So all you're going to do that is by you come to use that new table function. Because I want to create a table this time. Or you come to this enter data as well. And yeah, it asks me for the table. And this table, I'm trying to create a measure table. A measure table. So in my measure table, you can, yeah, probably allows you to write information here, but most of the time you're not really going to be inputting information except you're trying to use it for something. So I have this new measure here. I click on load it. So it loads an empty table for me. Yeah, which is this measure table. So I'm going to be moving every measure that I created into this table. I will create the measures here as well. So when I was creating this measure, the reason why I created it and dropped it here was because when I was creating it, I was actually in my branch data. If, for example, I was in this branch data here, let me say, for example, I'm here. So you see, I'm clicking on branch data right now, right? And I create a new column here that does something here. For example, a column that does, let's say, longitude multiplied by latitude. And I have my latitude multiplied by my longitude. And press enter. Is going to create it. You see, could create it here because I was literally in that table. So if you're trying to create a measure after you have created that measure table, all you have to do is click on this measure table and create your measures here, and it's going to impute them here. So I go to this sales, this particular one, the sales measure which we just created, and I move it here. So my house, what is the table that's housing or where is this being stored? And I click on this measure table. So it moves it now to my measures table. I don't need this new column here, so I can actually delete this. And if I look here, I see my measures table that has my measures, but I can't see anything because, like I mentioned, measures, they don't kind of, you don't really see them, but you can use them to do formulas and a lot of other stuff in Power BI. So there are also other measures. For example, let's say we're trying to find out the records of everybody that came into the number of people that came into the branch of what is our sales table. I want to create a measure out of that. We can use a measure which we call like the count rows. And I can come here to new measure. The minute I click on new measure here, it's going to create the measure inside this table. If I come here and I click on new measure and I write my measure formula, it's going to create it in my branch data. So I come to this measure table and I click on new measures. And I want to know number of ID. So this is ID count. I can use a formula called count rows. What count row is count number of rows in a particular table. And don't count for our sales. And for example, we have this now. If I go to see, the way to see it, you have to use it, for example, in a card or using a visual, for example. So let me say, for example, I delete this, I open a new card and I put this here. So it shows me the number of records we have on that table. So we have 1,000,000 records. Okay. So now we have a line chart here that shows me the sales, for example, the sales. And I want to find out my sales based on my branch. Yeah. So I have all the sales of my records here, and these are the quantity of each of these branches. Okay. Let's also do one that shows us the sales of all our branches and the year. Okay, so another about your formulas in Power BI, there's this stuff called row contents and filter content. Row content and filter content. Okay, so what we say row content, just think about like what we use the sum X. when I wrote the SumX formula, what it does is it creates individual records of all this data. So for example, I come here now and let me turn this to a table. Okay, so yeah, so it creates the individual records of this using all we did there was the SumX formula here. And it shows the individual records here of each of these records. Because we use the SumX. We also did one similar to, so that's like your row contest in which you are, whenever you write a formula, if you use the iterative function, the formula is going to exist on based on iteration of each of these individual records. See if this was not maybe branches, let's say for example, this was our date we used. I'll move all this hierarchy. This was our individual dates. These are the different dates, and these are all the measures. I'm gonna go back to my dates, come here, and make this the short date. Okay. So these are all the individual dates here, and so you should see it does it for each individual records. That's what it means. The filter contest, what it's just doing now is going to aggregate everything, well, based on it's going to aggregate everything, but it's going to also keep in account of any filter you have done. So for example, what we mean by your formula can also do a filter contest. If, for example, you have a slicer and your slicer here shows you the branch. If you come here and you click on Bagada, for example, yeah. So you see right now, the first record we have here is located based on date. I'll arrange it. I click on Bagada, it's going to consider the filter. So because the filter has been applied to it, the formula changes based on the filter that I've kept. That's what I mean. The formula has a filter contest as well. So the filter affects your formulas as well. So we have what our branches here. Okay. So I can change this table to a line graph here, and you see it becomes a little bit not very, very clear. Because we kept it based on every single date here. If, for example, I use the months, see, it shows me based on the month now. Okay, so there are also other stuff you can do with your formulas. For example, let's say you want to use, there's this formula called same period last year. So I try to calculate, I can see the formula based on considering our sales we made this year, and let's consider the sales we made the year previous than that. So one of the most powerful formula you're going to use when you go to use in Power BI is the calculate formula. So now we have our sales here, and we have the individual dates, and here we have the different sales. Okay. So I want to create a measure that shows me our sales we're considering last year. So I'm going to click on my measures table and click on new measures. I'm not finding out our sales as of last year. So I just put sales last year, and I'm going to use that calculate function. Okay. So the calculate functions, what it does it does an expression for you, but you can modify it based on you can modify the filter of it. So instead of it, for example, you're doing a sum, it does just a sum. I can actually try to do a sum, but only do a sum and do a sum and maybe filter out a particular location, or do a sum and filter out a particular date, or do a sum in this particular consent. That's what your calculate formula does. You allow you to do an expression, but you can modify the level of filtering it actually does. So I have our sales here. So what I want is my sales here, but I want to modify the context of the sales. I don't want to give me the sales like we have here. I want to give me the sales, but consider the dates. So I do like same period last year. So this period last year was the sales we made in this particular date, but for last year, not for this particular year. So I've sales period last year and it asked me for the date. So Power BI formulas are not really as interesting as Excel in the sense that most of the time this stuff might like clears out and you might have to readjust it. So I have my dates here. I give it the date and I close the bracket and I close the bracket, that's when I press enter. So I have my sales for same period last year. If I move it here, it shows me the sales last year. So this is the amount of sales we made last year. And this is what it does. So for example, here you have on the first day of this of 2018, you made 1.8. If you go and find that same date for 2019, so let's see what happened on the first day 2019. So on the first day 2019, this is first day 2019, we made 20. Let me change the stuff from maybe the dates. Let me just add this on the month. Let me create one that shows the month and the year. I need to filter it to show me the particular date I want to see. This one I did is SumX. Dates of the I'm just not displaying the dates. Well, what it actually does is it shows you the date you out, the date at the particular year. So for this year, this is how much you made, and the year before that year, this was how much you made in the similar contest. So and that formula again, this same calculate formula, it does a lot more than that. You can filter also again based on the particular location. So for example, you have these sales here. These are total sales. Your total sales at the moment is 1 point. So I put my measure here. It shows me 1.1 million. I can just calculate to filter my total sales, but based on a particular only based on a particular location. For example, I just go to new measure and I use the calculate. I call it on final sales, but my sales should only be based on, or maybe let's say it's lucky. Okay, so I use the calculate. The expression is my sales. So I want this my sales measure, and I want it to give me the location. Okay, so I click on location, I call it branch. Yes, so the branch, but whenever the branch is showing me so it has filtered this information that you have here now. This is in the wrong place. This information that you have here now is going to show you the branch, but based on only the sales that are showing in this particular location. And if I filter this now and I change this location, you see, you only filter it now based on this particular location. That's what it does. So the calculate can be done for more than that. What it allows you to do is you put in the expression you want and you put in the how you want to filter it, or what you want this calculate to do, for example. Like if you want to find out the sales maybe every 2 days or the days before a particular day, you can also use the calculator again to do that, but it does in your calculate. So I want to find out, let me undo this and click here. So new measure. So I want to find out the sales on, even the average sales, for example, per month. So the average sales, and I can use my, like I mentioned, this average X of, I give you my table and I just give you my expression and I can write that. Okay. So let's say we want to find out our sales based on, want to find out, okay. This particular one, we already had another table that showed us, we did one for the column here. Okay. So it shows us this, the one we did for the column, this one we did for the measure. Okay. Okay, that's weird. Okay. So for the sales last year, sales this year, measures, you calculate. There are also a lot of other date formulas as well. Like you can use the date to find out the date of a value of your amount based on maybe every minus 2 days, for example. For example, let me do new measure. Again, click here, click on new measure. I don't know, it keeps going to my branch data. Yeah. Click on new measure. Okay. So I want to calculate a date that shows me, for example, maybe with a cumulative date or the date for each value every day minus 2. So I can just do maybe the previous sales, and I do a calculate again, and I put in my sales. So for my sales measure, which is my sales, and I put the date. So you can use the formula called the date out. So it allows you to put the dates, and then you put the interval at which you want it to be either increasing or reducing. So the date I'm going to use is going to be my official dates, which is my not my sales data, in my dates table. And I want it to always go the date before, so -1 of that, and I want to use the date for it. And I put in value here. Okay, so now if I put this in this table, it's going to show me each of the sales, but based on the sales before it. So each day, but the sales before that particular day. So there are actually a lot of things you can do. There are also other formulas. For example, you can use the average, the count. You can give your formulas an expression. We will do that in the next session. And you can also give your formulas even a filter. Besides even creating a formula with this, besides you using creating a new table with date, you can also use the formula to create a new table. For example, I go to this new table and I want to create a filter. So I want to use a filter. So let me just put maybe, and I use the filter formula. So the filter formula is going to create a table for you. Which table I want to use is going to be my sales. Well, so I want my sales branch when it's showing me only a particular location. And you see it has created a whole new table for me here that is just showing me the sales based on a particular location. Okay. So I don't know, so far already time is already up. So I don't know if there are any questions. Okay, so we have another session that is upper week. So I'll share the link to the session, and we also have an Excel session coming up once again upper week. I think that'll be the last session for the year. Yeah, so we're going to be looking at stacks oversight analysis. And this is the link to register for the session. So far, we don't have an Excel session yet. So this link for the session next week. So ending the session right now.